And so Prometheus is doing exactly what the fallen angels were supposedly doing in the book of Enoch. The book of Enoch was basically censored from the Old Testament. It survived more or less only in an Ethiopian form, and it explains what the hell happened in Genesis 6, which is an absolutely, it's an absurd part of the Bible, where in like literally one paragraph, you're told that these angels came down and they had sex with, mortal women, and there was this race of giants consequently sired on the earth, and they became rebellious against heaven. And God decides as a result of this to basically wipe out all of mankind in this global deluge. And you're left wondering with this one paragraph, like, what the hell happened here? What could have happened that God has decided to wipe clean his whole creation, right? And by the way, what kind of God is this who didn't see this coming? Right. Anyway, clearly not an omniscient God. Exactly. So it's basically Elil, or as we're going to see, Zeus in the myth of Prometheus. And so Prometheus does exactly what the fallen angels supposedly did, which you see in the book of Enoch. It expands on Genesis 6 at length and talks about how they came down and their purpose was to empower humanity. They weren't just coming down to have sex with mortal women. They were having sex with mortal women to create a race of hybrids on the earth who would be able to contest, the sovereignty of the gods, who would be able to lead a essentially liberation struggle against heaven and to storm heaven, as it were. And so they teach humanity all the arts and sciences, exactly what Prometheus did and exactly what Enki is supposed to have done. So Enki is the creator of mankind. Just like in the myth of Prometheus, it's not Zeus who creates humanity. Prometheus is the architect of humanity, the father of mankind, and he's a good father. He's a father who wants his children to flourish, and he beneficently attempts to empower them. He's the kind of father who wants to see his children do even better than him. And so he teaches humanity all these arts and sciences. Just like Enki sends 7 sages to teach humanity all of the various crafts. And, Elil is furious about this. And, then it lays the groundwork ultimately for this global deluge to basically decimate the high civilization that develops on the basis of the arts and the sciences that were taught to humanity by the rebel Anunnaki, or as the Christians later call them, the fallen angels. And you see all of this in the myth of Prometheus. I mean, so I'm really jumping ahead now, but and we can come back around to it in a more sequential order. But basically, people lose sight of the fact that the flood myth exists as part of the myth of Prometheus in Greek culture. Right. Prometheus's son, Deucalion, is the Greek Noah figure. Right. Except that the Greek version makes a hell of a lot more sense. Right. Because why would the same God who's trying to wipe out humanity with a flood appoint someone to save humanity from the flood? It doesn't make any sense. Right. This is a YAHWEHist appropriation of an older myth which was threatening to that religious establishment, a myth wherein it's the son or a representative of the Enki figure, son of Prometheus, who attempts to save what he can of humanity from this global deluge. And so this is Deucalion, and Deucalion is depicted very much in the guise of the sages that worked with Enki as a kind of civilizer. He not only saves a portion of humanity from this flood, he helps to reestablish civilization on the earth. So he's kind of like, you could say, the bricklayer of the Tower of Babel, to put it in biblical terms, the one who, makes another attempt after the flood to build a tower to the heavens to empower and unify humanity. So the myth of Deucalion connects Prometheus to the flood myth in the Bible and underlines the fact that Prometheus is essentially, to put it in biblical terms, the leader of the fallen angels. Figure that later winds up being called Lucifer. And well, what's Lucifer? The bringer of the light. Well, that's the fire that he brought from heaven. It's pretty obvious. And
Which is funny because in Lucifer's Roman mythology with Ovid and other writers, there's nothing evil about him. He's a hero. He's a savior god. There's nothing. He's not satanic or whatever the hell the Christians try to say about him later on, or Isaiah tries to say about him in his text. He's just a light bringer. He's the son of dawn.
Yeah. Well, but the thing is, he is satanic in the sense that the word Satan, shaitan, just means ha-shaitan in Hebrew or shaitan in Arabic. Ha-shaitan means the adversary. Sure. And so is he the adversary? Hell yeah, he's the adversary. Prometheus is the original adversary, right? And there's something, now I want to come back to this flood myth, okay? But let me just go on a tangent for a minute, back to the very beginning, right? Because I want to highlight the way in which this character is radically adversarial. Prometheus betrays the Titans. He's an adversary first against his fellow Titans. So he's not a god. Prometheus is a Titan. And he turns on the Titans and sides with Zeus in the Titanomachia, in the clash of the Titans, because Prometheus goes to these fellow Titans. He's like, listen, you can't defeat these Olympians through brute force. I'm telling you, there's got to be strategy here. He lays out stratagems with his forethought, and they won't have it. And so Prometheus takes the position that, well, you know, these Titans are going to lose. This is a loser. It's futile. They're going to lose. And so in order to basically put himself in a better position for achieving a more long-term objective, he shrewdly sides with the Olympians and helps Zeus come to power. Then he realizes in due course that, and let me just point a couple things out before I continue down that road, that when this happens, Prometheus has 3 brothers, and 2 of them wind up being punished by Zeus after he comes to power, after the Olympians win in the Titanomachia. 2 of Prometheus's 3 brothers are punished together with the other Titans. And one of them is a figure called Menoetius. Menoetius was bound in Tartarus under the earth together with the other Titans. And he's the Titan of excessive wrath, prideful rage, and hubris. So you can see how this is a shadow side of Prometheus that later is integrated into the Judeo-Christian image of Satan. It's the side of Prometheus, the brother of Prometheus, as it were, who is bound under the earth. In other words, what becomes later hell in the Judeo-Christian cosmology. He's that side of Prometheus that is bound in the pit of hell, as it were, and has this exceedingly wrathful, prideful, defiance of Zeus from the beginning. And then the other brother of Prometheus, another brother of Prometheus, Atlas, is the strongest of the Titans, and he led the Titans in the battle. He was the general who leads the Titans in the Titanomachia, and he's punished by forcing him to separate heaven and earth through bearing the celestial sphere on his own shoulders, which is an incredibly powerful symbol.
Yeah.
Because it means that he's not just separating heaven and earth, he's connecting heaven and earth. So heaven and earth are connected through Atlas. And remember, Atlas was against Zeus. And so in a way, he's sort of in this dynamic position where he could storm heaven from the earth because he's the one holding up the heavens.
Right.
And then later Atlas becomes a metaphor for all kinds of basically maps of knowledge.
Right. That's good.
Atlases in the sense of star charts, which seafarers use to navigate the oceans. And so then map making, was associated with Atlas, atlases of the world. And then even in medicine, you have atlases of the human body, the basically, there's portrayals of the skeletal system and the nervous system and so on. They're called medical atlases. Right. And so atlas is a term that's very much associated with bodies of knowledge and mapping out the world for the sake of gaining greater knowledge. And so in this way, Atlas is also intimately connected with the meaning of the myth of Prometheus and reflects another aspect of Prometheus's association with science and technology, which is, of course, that the light of the fire that he brings from Olympus, the light of the fire in the dark night of human ignorance, and also the fire of the forge. That's a symbol of technological science. And so it's not incidental that Atlas is the brother of Prometheus. It's emphasizing the association of Prometheus with technological science and humanity's quest for knowledge and mapping out of the world through human initiative and exploration and the quest for discovery. And then the last brother of Prometheus is Epimetheus, who he's the fool, he's the idiot. His name means afterthought. Instead of forethought, Promethea, it comes from Epimethea, which is the opposite adjectival quality, meaning afterthought or hindsight. Like, you know, like when you look back and say, shit, I shouldn't have done that, you know. That's Epimethea. Wow. You know, hard-earned hindsight, and realizing something only in retrospect. So Epimetheus, the other brother of Prometheus, is this forgetful fool, right? Hindsight, we're talking about, you know, how his name means afterthought. And he sides with Prometheus, takes his advice that they should basically help Zeus come to power. And so he's rewarded by being allowed to help Prometheus in the creation of mankind. And in fact, in the creation of the animals in general. So Epimetheus functions as a kind of subcontractor who helps Prometheus as Prometheus is, you know, molding mankind from out of clay. And by the way, just on a side note, this whole issue of man being molded from out of clay, the race of man being molded from out of clay, is significant because in the Semitic tradition that eventually yields Islam,
right,
it's said that before the race of clay, which, you know, is Adam, the race of Adam, which is not just a person, but a race, Adam, is a mankind made of clay. And according to the Semitic myths, before Adam, there was a race made of fire on the earth. And so it appeared, and of course, fire is the element associated with Prometheus. And this race of fire rebelled against the angels, against the Malayek, you know, the angels,
right?
And against Allah, and they're punished. So it appears, and their civilization is wiped off the face of the earth. So it appears that yet again there is this parallel from the Greek myth to, you know, some kind of Semitic version, where the satanic is associated with the race of fire, and then the race of man, the race of clay, is seen as being subsequent to that. And so the myth of Prometheus is extremely subversive in an Islamic context, because it's suggesting that actually the race of clay wasn't created by Allah, the way it says in the Quran. The race of clay was created by one of these beings of fire who was a rebel against Allah.
Right.
Again, another myth that's been misappropriated by YAHWEHs, or if we want to put it in Islamic terminology, you know, Muslims.
Right.
Submitters, as the name suggests. So, okay, what we were talking about was the nature of Prometheus as a primordial adversary.